This video just came out that kind of caught my eye. Every new MMO you can play in 2025. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I know of off the top of my head. I know the Dune one. I think the Dune one is coming out this year. I think that's the only one I can think of, to be honest with you. Oh, maybe Ashes of Creation? But that, I mean, that's an alpha. Maybe the Ashes of Creation.
Hey, hello, welcome back. It is that time of year once again where we sit down to take a look at the upcoming MMO release schedule. Just, a little sneak peek of all the games that are sure to disappoint us in 2025. Jokes aside.
I know, he's actually right. Every MMO launch is like, I don't know. It's usually not that great. Although do have to say, I think Throne of Liberty was pretty successful for what it is. It's just I don't know. They come out, they're popular for like a month, maybe 2 months max, and everybody ditches it afterwards because I don't know, it's really fun. And MMO at the start of MMO is always really magical, right? No one knows what they're doing, but everyone's learning. It's all fresh, all new artwork, new abilities, new heroes, whatever. But then, oh, this game's heavily paid to win if it's like an Eastern MMO. Or, the end game systems are just awful and there's like 30 different systems. I wish a game would come out that was like classic WoW. Like it was just like not even the balance, but just the simplicity of the items. Like that's the only like system is, hey, here are your items and talent points. That is it. And maybe professions. That's it. No 15 systems like Lost Ark. Like I honestly was thinking about playing Lost Ark the other day, but I was like looking at it, they added even more systems. So I don't know. We'll see. What's coming out.
There. Jokes aside, the focus here is going to be on the MMOs that are already currently confirmed to release in some capacity.
I think this is a Dune one
this calendar year. Now, I will touch on some of the other titles that are less certain but could possibly release, and we're also going to go over the various planned alpha, beta, and other play tests that are coming in this year as well. Which, while not full release, again could be an opportunity to play an MMO that you haven't played before.
I'm honestly getting those skeptical of Ashes of Creation. Like after watching people like raid and stuff in it, I'm like, I know it's just alpha, right? But I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this game. It's not like I got really hyped about it watching Lazy PN's video like a few years ago, and I can't believe it's been a few years, but like really hyped, and I think a lot of other people did too. But now I'm watching it, I'm like, I don't know if it's gonna be it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start out with the games that, as of today, have confirmed release windows for 2025. First up on the list is Chrono Odyssey. The
Never heard of this.
most recent information that we've got is that they are planning to run a closed beta test Q1, so sometime within these next few months, followed by the full release scheduled for Q4 2025. Now, this
Elden Ring
comes
vibes
via the IR reporting from publisher
Wow,
Kakao Games.
graphics look, oh my god, the graphics look
November,
sick.
so it's relatively recent, up-to-date details, as up-to-date as it gets.
The graphics look crazy. Is that Unreal 5?
Beyond having all the expected traditional open-world MMO stuff, the game uses real-time action combat. It's going to have the basic attack, defense, and dodge mechanics that you expect. Combat also utilizes a weapon swapping mechanic, not only changing from one weapon to another, like swapping skill bars, for example, but also evidently they're going to have the ability to alternate how you hold a weapon, either in one or both hands. This is pretty good. Which to me sounds awfully similar to how this sort of system works.
This looks okay. This looks really good. I know it's the trailers, but
there's
this
also
gameplay
this special mechanic
clean.
or ability called the Chrono Tector that allows you to freeze time, rewind events, and explore alternate timelines. Now, I'm going to assume, as they're highlighting this mechanic, it's probably likely exclusive to the instant story-based content in the game, as freezing and rewinding time with other players around you just doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's highly unlikely, unless their sort of freeze and rewind time system is like similar to what mages have in WoW, where you start it and then it pulls you back like 5 or so seconds into the position, the health, and the mana that you had at that particular time. But regardless, Chrono Odyssey, we got 6 confirmed classes, each come
6 classes
with 2 particular weapons that they utilize. So there's the swordsman who uses sword and shield as well as a great sword. Paladins.
I feel like these kind of games though, they don't have like that many abilities, I'm thinking of like New World. It's like you have what, 3 or 4 abilities? I played New World for like an hour and I was like, I don't know, the combat just like the animations are great and stuff, but it's only like 3 or 4 abilities. I don't know if that's enough. Like, I hope there's at least like 10. I think 10 is a good number. You have like your offense, maybe you got one or two utility things, one or two defensives. Like that's good.
Got the mace along with a tower shield and spear. The sorcerer uses a staff and spellbook. The berserker is dual axes and a great axe. The assassin dual daggers and a rifle. And then finally the ranger, who utilizes a bow and rapier.
Oh, you know
now,
what we're
beyond that
playing.
stuff, Chrono Odyssey also
Ranger.
has and features random procedurally generated dungeons. They're gonna have large-scale realm versus realm battles, open world seamless exploration between zones, open field world events that can be, quote, enjoyed by
Okay.
hundreds of players simultaneously. This will include
Sounds
things like
laggy.
world bosses, and they've also got weather and dynamic seasons, and the whole thing.
I don't think he mentioned raids. I don't know. I play MMO for raiding content. Like, I play retail WoW, classic WoW. I love raiding. It's like that's the only reason I play. I mean, dungeons are cool too, but like raiding is like it for me. MMO PvP is never balanced, so it's never fun. I don't know.
Running on Unreal Engine 5. Now, this certainly is a
Yeah,
pretty
this looks like it's on Unreal Engine
game
5.
from the small snippets of it that we've seen thus far.
I can't
that
believe
is
I haven't
for
heard of
sure.
this
Of course,
yet.
it is hard to judge much beyond the fact that it looks good. I would guess, aside from the fact that we should probably also expect the typical monetization seen from its publisher, Kakao Games, which is a lot of monetization we should likely expect. So once again, Chrono Odyssey
There it
is gonna have
is.
closed
There
beta
it is.
testing scheduled for sometime between
Beta
now
win.
and April. Keep an eye out for signups for that. And then
Beta
unless
win.
things change, yes, this
You
game
heard
is
it.
expected to release officially later this year. All right.
I don't know why like other developers don't just learn their lesson. Like it's crazy. You know how if like I was so hyped for that for like 2 minutes, and then he mentions monetization and how there's gonna be a lot of it. That he's just saying is pay to win. All my hype is out the window because guess what? Someone can go in there, swipe their credit card, and just have the best stuff in the game. So it just trivializes every other part of the game. It's so frustrating. I don't know why every MMO comes out as pay to win nowadays. It's just a money grab, but like, I don't know. I would rather them like. I don't know what to do, how to do it is. I honestly, I'd rather pay a monthly subscription than be free, but it's just
All right,
pay to
next up
win.
is Dune Awakening, scheduled for release in early 2025. This is the open world sandbox survival crafting MMO developed by Funcom.
I'm
The
not
game
into
looks to be
survival
building
crafting,
upon the
but
foundation
that could be
laid
fun.
with Conan Exiles, their prior quite popular game, but this time it's going to be new, improved, and obviously also set in the Dune universe. Some notable details about this game include, as mentioned, survival sandbox MMO. That's probably the best way to describe it. You've got all of the basic survival crafting features and systems: gather resources, make items, build a base, craft gear, get stronger, go out to explore, take on enemy camps, and engage in PvP. That is like the baseline foundation of what you'll be
Okay.
doing in this game. As for the explorable spaces that we have, well, they take place on the Dune planet of Arrakis, and it's going to primarily at release
I don't know.
consist of
Is it
two
just me? I'm not really. I read Dune, and it was a very complicated book because there's so many different characters, races. There's so much like it just like throws you into this world of like different races, different like religions, like planets. Even it's intense. It's a lot, and I think that's why even if you watch the first Dune movie, it's just like what's going on, what is happening, and then. I want to watch Dune 2, but I want to watch like a video, but the video that explains Dune and all of Dune is like 3 hours long, and I'm like, do I really? Is the story even that good? So I don't know. The franchise has got this big upsurge in the past few years, I feel like, but I just for me it's not. I don't know. It's not hitting.
massive open zone regions. Now, the first one of those, post the tutorial,
I'm
is
surprised
called
it's so popular.
Haga Basin. Now, this region alone is said to be larger than the entirety of their prior game, Conan Exiles. And Conan Exiles is a pretty big game, especially after all these years. Now,
Never
they say
played it.
that Haga Basin is going to have somewhere in the vicinity of around 100 hours of content to play through. And then after that, the end game zone of the deep desert will become available, which is where the late game progression and large scale PvP takes place. In terms of what sort of stuff that you're going to see in these open
this is
zones,
not
well, you've got a
good-
variety
this is
of
not
points
a
of
good-
interest,
good
public
game to
events,
me.
and content types. These include
I don't know. These games are just like, I mean, they're fun with friends, right? But for me, this is just not the MMO for me. It's like you explore, you build a base. I mean, it's a really popular genre, but
These
it's not
strongholds,
for
these
me.
large,
Like I
elaborate
said,
bases,
all I want to do
camps,
when I
and
play an MMO
ruins,
is
things
kill
along those
bosses.
lines. These will be full of enemies. You go in, you clear them out using a mixture of ranged, melee, and spells and abilities, depending on your class and build setup. After doing so, collecting valuable loot and resources in the process. You've got the desert testing stations. This is basically their take on public dungeons. These are predominantly underground areas that come in a variety of biomes, and while these will be full of enemies, and many will even have some sort of a boss encounter at the end, they have said that the testing stations are more modeled after things like the shelters in Fallout or the dungeons in Skyrim, rather than what you would expect from a traditional MMO dungeon. What that means is you're going to be moving through halls, corridors, and rooms. There's going to be a lot of narrative woven into each of the locations, like you will find data pads and audio logs that give you information about the history of that area. And while bosses can be in these things, it's not going to be like MMO dungeon bosses. It's just going to be like tougher versions of like the basic enemies.
It's just going to be a mob that has one ability and it just has a lot of health, so it just takes a while to kill. Sick.
There's also things like public events in the overworld. You got crash ship events where you're going to literally see these ships falling from the sky, crashing into the ground. If you head to their location, you can scavenge them for resources.
That's pretty cool.
However, other players can show up, as some of these will be PvP flagged, meaning you'll have to compete for
it's like a crate
resources.
that falls in PUBG. Everyone's just going to the crate.
At night. These security ships that scan the surface of the planet looking for players, and if you happen to be caught in their spotlights, they're going to call in troops to your location, which you'll have to deal with. And then, of course, it wouldn't be Dune without the sandworm that is present if you spend too much time walking on the sands.
The end game is you can mount a sandworm if you kill it. Now, how cool would that be? If you kill a sandworm that's really hard boss, like a really hard world boss, I'm talking like not mythic raid, but like heroic raid difficulty, right? You have a group of people. You do a heroic raid boss, so like I don't know, and everyone gets to mount. How cool would that be? Like that would bring me to the games like this, like really cool rewards. No games do that anymore. Everything is just swipe your credit card. I was talking to my buddy the other day about this. It's like all the cosmetics are like back in the day in Halo 3. If you had like cool armor, you earned that. Like. What was it? One set was really cool, but you had to do all these achievements on legendary difficulty, which was no joke. And me and my buddy did it, and it took hours. It was very hard, but it was so rewarding because like, oh, someone's like, oh, you had that set. The shoulders were sick. The helmet was sick. If you hit certain ranks, you got like armor. Like, there's no game like that really nowadays that really does it. I think World of Warcraft retail does it because you get. If you do like Mythic Raid, right, you get the mount, which is always really sick. Like the end game mount from like the last boss on Mythic is always really cool. And you can only get it when it's current content. You can get it after, but like the drop rate goes down to like 0.1% or something crazy. You also get a cool title. I have a lot of cool titles. But no one really cares about titles though. But I think the mount is really cool. I wish other games did that. Especially MMOs.
Draw the worms, and if they catch you, you're pretty much dead. The whole reason you're going to want to take this risk, though, is that there's a lot of valuable resources that can be located on said sand dunes. So you want to go there, you just want to do so strategically. The game's also got player hubs with 2 major towns.
That was so
vendors,
janky.
quest NPCs, other players, and a marketplace.
The combat does not look that good.
As for endgame, that is
it's
entirely
alpha, I
taking
guess,
place
but
in the deep desert region. This is a massive, expansive area made up mostly of sand, but with rock islands dotted all throughout, which provides some reprieve from the sandworms. Guilds of players will be headed into this area
so
in search
boring,
of
man.
spice, which is a main resource and currency for not only endgame
Play in a
crafting, but also
desert.
character progression. And it is in this region where the whole large-scale PvP conflicts happen, what they refer to as combined arms, which how they've described it basically sounds like a mixture of battlefield and or planet side. You got loads of players using ranged and melee weapons, ground and air vehicles, various forms of artillery.
The gunplay
This
doesn't
whole
seem
thing is
too
gonna
bad
be
though.
Large-scale, all-out all-out combat and utter chaos. Now that is the basic like high-level rundown of content and features in Dune Awakening. So just the other week, it was confirmed once again via Twitter that the studio is on track to hit their announced release window of early 2025. February seems very unlikely given it's almost there and they haven't said it's coming out that month. So it's probably more probable that we expect a release sometime in March or April potentially. Either way, I am quite keen to check this out myself as a fan of both MMOs and survival games. This one seems like a nice blending of those two.
See if I get some friends to play it.
I also happen to know that prior to release,
or viewers,
beta test that's happening,
sort of guild or something, that'd be cool.
Which you can register for a chance to be invited over on their website. All right, before we continue on with the list, let's get a quick word from today's sponsor. Hold tight though, this is a good one. Today's video is sponsored by Warframe, the free-to-play sci-fi loot grinding game from Digital Extremes. I have played this quite a bit myself over the years, and while it doesn't fit the traditional mold of MMORPG, it is still quite interesting looking, and I think it will be potentially appealing to fans of the genre. It's appealing to me. So Anvil is a massively multiplayer game where thousands of players work together to build empires, wage war, and conquer in a persistent online world. The kicker here is you actually play as an individual soldier in this massive medieval army.
That's
from what I've seen of
really cool.
It looks like they really deliver on this. This potentially seems really cool. Now,
so it's like you're playing. It's the Age of Empires, but you play as one of the peasants. And you gotta start from zero. Start as like a farmer or like a peasant, and then you work your way up to like a soldier or something. That's pretty sweet.
And this isn't going to deliver like the traditional fantasy MMORPG experience. It's not a fantasy setting whatsoever. It's more so like you are playing as a foot soldier in Age of Empires or something. Like you are one of the members in a squad.
That's so
basically.
cool.
The developer's prior game, Foxhole, had a very similar concept, except rather than being set in the medieval times, Foxhole takes place in what looks to be like a fictional take on World War II, with you playing as an individual infantry soldier. And that game is quite well liked. It's got over 35,000 reviews on Steam with an 88% very positive user rating. Their prior game, which had like a similar formula but set in a different setting, similar to this, and people seem to really like what they did. So as for their upcoming game, Anvil Empires, here's what we know. They say you'll take part in large-scale game of conquest that takes weeks to play out, wage war alongside thousands of players across one persistent online world.
That looks pretty cool.
Server technology that enables up to 1,000 people to be fighting shoulder to shoulder in massive real-time melee battles. These battles organically instigated by the player base themselves. You will also build settlements and grow them from a small hamlet into large bustling towns, shared by hundreds of players, engaging in side activities like farming, hunting, husbandry, and more to support the upcoming war efforts. You can even trade with nearby player settlements. There's going to be a whole social economy here. Design and build these elaborate multi-level keeps and fortresses to help.
This looks really fun.
Withstand
this looks really fun.
Prolonged sieges. You're also gonna have to do things like establish supply camps and logistic lines to
how much do you think a mount costs? How much gold?
Fed, armed, and rested. And this whole thing further enhanced by the fact that the game supports in-game VoIP. You'll be chatting with your comrades fighting
I'm sold.
You. I mean,
in-game voice
really does look and sound pretty
I
neat.
wish. So I love in-game voice. I don't know why like more games don't do it. Like Marvel Rivals has voice chat. They have voice comps, right? And for some reason, League of Legends in 2025 still doesn't have it. I know, like, depends on the genre. I don't know why they don't just add it. It makes communication so much better. And in this kind of game, oh my god, it's going to be hilarious. Can you imagine 1,000 people screaming at each other?
Pre-alpha test currently underway, which you can request access directly via the Steam page. The access request will be visible at any points. Request access to look and sound pretty neat. So they've got pre-alpha tasks currently underway, which you can request access directly via the Steam page. The access request will be visible at any points that they're looking for new applications, and when that goes away, they remove the button. But as of this recording right now, you can currently sign up to be invited to these tests.
What's the game called?
Check it out. In terms of the release date, from a recent FAQ, we learned that they are planning to launch via Steam Early Access this year in 2025, though the full 1.0 release of the game is likely a while off. You will be able to play this game later in the year. Also, I did want to mention another game, Fellowship, and while this by no means is a traditional MMO, it is absolutely...
I've seen this game. This is like Mythic Plus, right? This is like a game that just specifically is Mythic Plus engines, which I like Mythic Plus and WoW for like a little bit. I just get my Keystone Master and then kind of like move on. So this could be cool for a little bit.
Modeled after the genre, this game basically is entirely focused on MMO style dungeon runs. The short of it is you pick from a variety of these made characters, each with their own playstyle and skills, and then from there you form a group filling up
So you got 2 tanks, 2 healers, 5 DPS. Okay.
all of the traditional MMO roles and go into these MMO like dungeons, clearing them. It's basically, if you were to say, take like the World of Warcraft mythic dungeon system and you spin it off into its entirely own separate
All right, that game's called Anvil Empires. I'm gonna go check real quick, see if it's on the store.
game. That is basically Fellowship. So they refer to this as a multiplayer online dungeon adventure, or MODA, in a fantasy setting.
Oh, he's right. You can log in. Okay, so join the alpha Anvil playtests. It's called Anvil Empires. Request access. All right, do it quick.
With endlessly scaling dungeons where players will focus on working together as a team with an emphasis on skill, cooperation, and strategy to defeat bosses, collect loot, and overcome ever-present challenges. As for additional features, we're going to have the Holy Trinity in the game. There will be a large roster and pool of various tanks, healers, and damage dealers for you to pick from, each of them with their own name, unique look, their own skills, playstyles, and capabilities. This might be one of the biggest downsides for some people for this game, is yes, you're not building your own character from scratch, you are picking from pre-established character classes, basically.
That's fine.
Basically, sort of like a MOBA. Dungeon teams will consist of 4
All right, so he's got like he's got like 10 abilities.
for
That's pretty
players,
good.
presumably 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 damage dealers. Maybe there are some support classes that you can mix things up with a bit beyond that. They also say that every run is going to feel like a new challenge, with dungeons getting more difficult as players progress and level. It seems like this scaling will be continuous, where they say players will never outlevel the game thanks to seasonal updates, dungeon modifiers, new features and rewards that get added, all of which will add many layers of replayability. Of
this
course,
looks
as you
pretty fun,
expect, every
actually.
boss fight's going to have its own unique varied mechanics for you to learn. They also say that enemy skills grow as difficulty increases, so it seems like the difficulty ramping up is more than just more health and more damage based on what they're saying here. And the game's going to include competitive leaderboards, presuming here that they're going to be some sort of scoring or time-based ranking system.
They got an
And
MDI.
yeah, pretty straightforward. Again, something that I think could appeal to the MMO crowd. It
I'm
does
actually
appeal
looking forward
me.
to that
Fellowship
game.
is currently slated to release in 2025 as of their latest announcement. I know that they've been running some limited time tests here and there as well. There's likely going to be more of these in the future, so keep an eye out for that. All right,
So far,
that
all of them except Dune, I'm interested in. All of them except Dune look really good.
covers all of the new MMOs or MMO adjacent games that are launching officially in 2025. But there's also going to be quite a few playable MMOs, with many of them getting some form of testing, either whether it's periodic testing or ongoing persistent tests that you can take part in. For starters, as you probably already know, Ashes of Creation currently has alpha testing underway, with them granting access to the first couple of early zones.
I pay a lot of money though
Although
to play
fully
this.
fleshed out, there is content there with some of the systems and features in place. Now, people have been playing
It's
this
like
for
$100.
a little over a month now, I believe, with a sort of a mixed reception from what I've seen online, with much of the critique basically boiling down to the fact that, yes, hey, it's an incomplete game. Not surprising, but people still paid money, and they're saying, hey, I wish there was more there. There's not quite enough there. Just buyer beware. And now, it does seem, though, that there is enough there for some people to be thoroughly hooked. I happen to know quite a few people who have been playing this game pretty consistently over the course of this past month. I do also plan to jump in myself
know anyone
at
who's
some
playing this.
point, although I'm not really in a rush, maybe at some point in the coming months, but nothing on the immediate horizon. I will say I think the PvP seems a lot of fun from the compilations and footage that I've seen. However, most of the leveling consisting of large scales, groups grinding elite mobs together, that doesn't seem very fun to me.
That's the leveling?
personally, but I'm willing to give it a go.
They don't
But
have
yes,
like
if you want
they don't
to
have like quests or dungeons. It's just like grinding rare mobs. That sounds kind of boring.
play an early version of Ashes of Creation, it is available right now. You can get into the game for a little over $100 at the lowest cost.
Damn,
I would
over $100.
personally recommend waiting unless you're like a die-hard, pumped, super amped up for this game. Although in
my
that case, you're
Ashes of
probably
Creation,
already
God.
playing it, so pay me no mind, right? Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This game is also playable, actually technically launching into Steam Early
Pantheon.
Access last month. Now, despite what
Oh,
first
wow, so it's out.
impressions you might have looking at the gameplay,
Whoa. What year is this? It's like Diablo 2 font. It looks like it's 1993.
I gotta say, this game has surprisingly gotten a really good reception, at least on Steam.
I mean, graphics
It's got
don't
very
matter,
positive ratings, and since it released, it's actually seen
Graphics don't matter, but the graphics are like
growth in its daily concurrent player count, presumably because of those positive word of mouth that's been going around. Although that number is still admittedly quite low in comparison to what you would expect for an MMO, there certainly looks to be something interesting
Is it
here
free?
that is
Let me
getting new
see.
players to jump in. My gut reaction
Pantheon.
looking at the gameplay is, yeah, I mean, the combat looks quite boring. The game as a whole looks quite dated. But as with Ashes, I am totally
it's
willing to give it a
$40
look and hoping for the best, right? So going to add this one to my list
I would pay $40 if it's not pay to win.
as well. Soulframe, the latest title from Warframe developer Digital Extremes. They are currently
Soulframe.
running regular alpha tests referred to as preludes. This consists of a relatively small region of explorable space in which they've got some of their planned foundation laid for the game. There's open world exploration, you got enemy camps to go in and clear, as well as these underground procedurally generated dungeon layouts. I will say I really enjoyed the time I spent playing this game. In my opinion, it does have a pretty solid foundation. Biggest issue is the combat lacks any real sense of impact. It's just very floaty.
That's so, I mean, that's no good for me. Like, combat is everything in games for me. Like, it really is. If the combat's not fun, I'm not playing it for long.
And just no oomph behind it. I hope they work on that though, because everything else, like the world, the enemies, the characters, the points of interest, the
doesn't
general
look that
structure,
bad. I
the
mean,
tone, the setting of the game, all of that I really, really like.
Yeah,
So
everything
keeping my
looks.
fingers
The
crossed that
artwork
they
looks
can-
cool. The animations look cool. I don't know. They didn't show much combat. I wonder why. What's wrong with the combat? Maybe it's just like doesn't have like good. Like I feel like combat, you really need the right. One, you need good responsiveness. You need really good animations and like, good sound effects. I'm probably missing something, but those are the top three that kind of just pop out to me.
and give the gameplay a little more strong, solid feel to it, a strong sense of impact and reactivity from characters when you hit them, and the sounds and the animations and the spells.
That's one thing. Okay, one thing I have in Final Fantasy 14 is like I've always feel like I'm playing on like 150 ping. I don't know what it like. I don't know why, but when I play Bard and use that one buff that gives you faster GCDs, it flows so much better. So I don't know, but that, like, I mean, WoW and Classic WoW and all Blizzard games, like that's the one thing that's so good about them. Even though like their games are not great anymore, but their combat is always top notch. They have a secret formula that like no other company can even touch.
All coming together to make a good feeling combat system.
Except
I hope
Riot.
they can do that, because beyond the combat,
Riot MMO's coming out next. Riot MMO is the next one. I wish, man.
Everything else is like perfectly checks off all the boxes for me. You can register for Preludes testing over on their website. In my experience, there's probably a few days to a week's worth of content here if you really want to play through everything, explore the whole island, grind out some of the character progression, run the dungeon several times to get some upgrade materials, stuff like that. Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out, and I remain very hopeful for Soulframe. All right, one of my most anticipated upcoming MMOs, ArcheAge Chronicles. Now, this was originally slated to release in 2025. However, from that same Cacao Games report that gave us the release window for Chrono Odyssey, we also learned there that they had delayed the release of ArcheAge Chronicles, pushing it out into 2026. Now, that said, they are planning to hold closed beta testing for ArcheAge Chronicles later in 2025. There is a lot about this game that I am very hopeful for, most of which just builds off of the things that I loved about the original ArcheAge. And they have said they are planning to include all of the best systems and features from that game, but moving it onto a modern day engine with more PvE content, and obviously the biggest shift here being the change from tab target to full on action combat. Now, if you want a full rundown of what we know about that game, where my expectations are, just check out my latest upload. Yeah, this game is like at the top of my please don't screw this up badly with microtransactions list.
Yeah, like every MMO that comes out. I never played ArcheAge, but I've always heard good things. Is it still live? Like, can you still play ArcheAge? I don't really know nothing about it. I really wish I kind of played these games when they were out. ArcheAge. All right, my Twitch is crashing. I don't know what's going on with Twitch. Whatever.
I mean, totally ready and expecting to be let down, but if they don't let me down, could be huge. Original ArcAge had a lot going for it. Similar to Pantheon, Monsters and Memories is another upcoming MMO that looks to provide a modern day version of the old school classics of the genre. And I mean, yeah, just looking at this, it is very much in line with what I remember from EverQuest or Ashron's Call. Like, to my eye, matches it to a T. The game is set for an early access launch in 2026. However, in the meantime, they do have beta testing planned for Monsters and Memories, tentatively scheduled for some time.
I'm not a graphics guy. I really couldn't care less, but like to some extent, I do care about graphics. And I feel like with this game, the gameplay is gonna match the graphics, and it's just not gonna feel good.
July or August. Okay, so beyond those, we of course expect some major patches and content updates for all of the existing big MMOs out there, right? World of Warcraft isn't expected to get a full expansion this year. However, we will be seeing some content patches.
The next patch looks so good. If you've played WoW and you played Dragonflight or The War Within, and you like kind of like gave up, like, I mean, it's kind of dead now. Check out the patch. Check out the raid. It looks so good. I can't wait for this.
For the War Within.
I don't know about Mythic Plus. I don't like I said, Mythic Plus for me is like whatever, side thing. But the raid looks so cool. Just the theme, the aesthetic, the tier sets. So it looks really solid.
And probably safe to say something for classic WoW and or Season of Discovery, be that fresh servers or some new content at some point. Final Fantasy XIV, similarly, will be getting content updates for its most recent Dawn Trail expansion. The Elder Scrolls Online will have its typical yearly content.
I might play FF14 soon. I tried to do the 4-day free trial or login campaign, but I think I messed up and I like downloaded the game again and that counted as like a start point. And it's been like a week, and then I tried to log in. I was like, oh, you can't do it. So, I don't know.
Cycle rolling through. And Guild Wars 2, not too long ago, also adopted a similar model of having smaller but more frequent updates, which we expect to continue in 2025.
There's so many MMOs now.
And of course, the list goes on. But yeah, any of the currently popular MMOs, they're going to keep getting updates throughout the course of the year.
They all get like 2 or 3 updates a year, I feel like.
Past 5, 10, 15, 20 years in some cases. Now, there are some additional MMOs that do actually have confirmed releases for 2025. However, to be perfectly honest, each of these games either just looks downright terrible to me, or in some cases, some of them might just be outright
this game
shovelware.
looks awful.
Ashfall. I played this in an earlier test. I think it was last year early on, and it was just really bad. Probably one of the most mobile game feeling PC ports I have ever seen. It was just incredibly basic, not terribly good, not terribly
this does look like a mobile game.
Polished, not very fun, in my opinion anyways. I will probably play it again just out of morbid curiosity when it releases, but please don't expect much from Ashfall, because from what I've seen, there's not much there. Quinfall is in a similar category for me. This just looks pretty cool, bad, to be honest with you, but would be happy to be surprised. Then we got some other games that I just don't know
what's
much
bad about it. I mean,
there
was only a little bit of footage there, but like, it doesn't look terrible.
Quinfall is in a similar category.
The graphics look okay.
For me, this just looks pretty...
Wait, what's this elephant doing?
Bad, to be honest with you, but
they're just, I don't know, the animal, I don't know. Actually, this looks
surprised.
Like
then we got some other games that I just don't know much about and couldn't find a lot of details on, including Eternal Tombs, Havenhold, and then there's this game Earth from Another Sun, which I wanted to put on here because it was on lists that I looked at, but from what I've seen in early research, looks like a blockchain NFT game, so probably best to write that one off, right? Oh, also, just wanted to briefly mention some of the in-development MMOs that we know of, but they're likely coming in 2026 or later. And with these ones, I'm talking about Perfect New World, Bellatores, Project Q from Lionheart Studios, which still doesn't have an official name, as well as Project...
Wait, isn't Lionheart Studios, isn't that the game that the company that makes Fable?
LLL, which also isn't an official release name, although at least for Project LLL, out of all those other games, we have seen a fair bit of gameplay for this one. It's like this open world looter shooter, which seems kind of cool, but in terms of concrete launch info, there's absolutely nothing. Like, we've got no expectations. So it's more likely than not that these games will not come out in 2025, but it is possible. Like, potentially in the coming months, we could get 1 or 2 of these that get release dates announcements for later in the year or middle way through the year. We'll just have to wait and see. But as of right now, don't expect any of those prior 4 games this year. And then there is the handful of anticipated MMOs that are just absolutely no way in hell coming out in 2025. And probably not 2026 either. Way off in the distance.
I think the only one I think was Riot's MMO.
I'm talking about ZeniMax Online Studios, the creators of ESO. We know that they have had a brand new MMO in development for something like 7 years now. Now, I do actually think there's a fair chance we could get a reveal of this one, if it's just a teaser at some point.
ESO, I think ESO's cool, but the combat is just so awful. It's just terrible. So if they have decent combat, I'd try it out. But like, I've tried to use it a few times. It just feels it's so bad.
this year,
The
which would
combat
be
is
really,
just
really
so
nice.
bad.
Sony
Everything
has
else, the story, the zones. I feel like I'm playing Skyrim. It's so cool. Like with MMO Skyrim, like sign me up. But the combat is just so bad.
that Horizon MMO, if it wasn't recently canceled, as they have
Oh,
been
I never heard of
nuking
this.
these in development live service games left and right here lately. Then, of course, there's
That one would probably be a survival one. Of course, this is League Riot's
Riot's
MMO.
League of Legends themed MMO, although that is at least 5 years away. If
Yeah,
not
that's
closer to 10. I mean, who knows? And then
that's
there's
not
that
coming.
Ghost MMO, but again, that is similarly quite a ways off. Okay, so there you have it. A look at all of the upcoming new MMOs planned and scheduled for 2025. As a recap, confirmed coming this year, barring any delays, will be Chrono Odyssey,
This one looks cool, but it's be pay to win. But I'm gonna play it. This one looks really cool.
Dune Awakening, Anvil Empires, and
Anvil Empires looks cool. I think the Awakening one, Mythic Plus one, like the first 5 or 6 you talked about, besides Dune, look pretty good actually. I'm surprised. I haven't even heard a lot of these either. I'm surprised these are coming out. So I'm hyped, honestly.
Fellowship. We should for sure be playing like launch versions of those games this year. And then there's going to be
It's a good year for MMOs. Jeez. Now, okay, he also is okay. This is gonna happen. Put your money on it. Okay, Lost Ark. They're gonna come out with a server that is there's no pay to win. You only have to do Chaos Dungeons like once a day on one character. There's no like transferring of materials. All the systems are really just like gone. And yeah, you just get drops from the dungeons in the raid. And that may be a weekly or two. And that's it. That's all there is. And I would never play any other game ever. I
early
love
play
like Lost Ark so good.
test, which you can jump in and check out these games for Ashes of Creation that is ongoing. Soulframe is also ongoing, although quite limited. There's Arcade Chronicles that's supposed to be getting tests later in the year, and Monsters and Memories. Got all of the expected content updates that will be coming for the big existing MMOs, and then we've got
But right now, the earliest one on my radar is the new WoW retail patch. I've played a little bit of classic, hardcore. I don't know, it's just a grind, man. It's just a grind. Like you die, and it's like, oh. So I died the other day, and I'm like, all right, I need a little break.
a few less than stellar looking titles coming.
Also, Final Fantasy 14, I want to play. I don't want to spend all that money on these MMOs. But let me know in the comments. What have you guys been playing? Like, I'm curious what like the MMO community has been up to. I know it's kind of been, WoW. I mean, WoW's been really hyped lately with hardcore and the Anniversary Realms. Yeah, and like Destiny 2 players. He didn't mention Destiny 2 at all. I know that's a big MMO.
This year, which, as I ran through, I might check these out for
What have you guys been
curiosity's
playing?
sake, but that's about it. And then once more, as has been the case in prior years, there's a good possibility that we'll have other MMOs launching beyond the ones that I've covered on the list, either because they're ones that we know of that get released sooner than expected, or some surprise games just come out of nowhere and launch all of a sudden, which we had some cases in 2024 and prior years. We could have something similar examples this year as well. Anyway, that does it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you look.
Yeah, let me know what you guys are playing. I'm curious. That was a good video. I learned so much. I didn't know how all these were coming out. That's crazy.